Hi, my name is Michael, and I am on a journey to become the smartest man in the world. And I thought, because I have a lot of learning to do, a good place to start was to read all of the most popular books about learning. And in this video, I will share with you the 5 most important concepts that I learned during all of this. So if you want more information about all of these books, everything will be in the description down below. So now let's learn how to learn. Number 1, planning and direct learning. One of the most important part of learning is the plan. Planning should be the first thing that you do before doing anything else. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And a good rule of thumb is that your planning should take about 5% of your total expected learning time. And that plan should be extremely direct. What exactly do you want to use that learning for? The more precise you are, the better. Here's the difference between a broad learning goal and a direct learning goal. I want to design video games. I want to be hired as a 3D environment artist at Ubisoft. See the difference? Finding the direct use for your learning is crucial to figure out exactly what you will need to learn. If you don't do that, chances are you will make the same mistake as everyone else, which is learning things that are not necessary for your ultimate goal. Next step is to go look for experts in your desired field and figure out exactly what knowledge they have and what sets them apart from less experienced people in the field. Then make a very precise list of everything that you will need to learn. And finally, you should set a SMART goal for each point on your list. A SMART goal is a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goal. For example, I want to be able to code a pop-up that reminds everyone to like and subscribe before next week. Number 2, to remember more, you need to recall more. What is our goal when we learn information? Our goal is to be able to recall the information at will. And a very simple way to be better at recalling an information is, well, practicing recalling it. Not rereading it, not answering questions while the book is open, but recalling it. And one great way to do that is with spaced repetition systems like Enki. One scientist found that the best time to recall an information was just before you forget it. So these systems estimate the most efficient timing to review the flashcards so that you don't over-practice them. Also, the more senses you can involve and the more connections you can make to knowledge that you already have in your brain, the easier it will be for you to cue the information. That could mean changing your studying medium, adding visuals and sounds to your flashcards, or thinking of how the information relates to your own life. Even changing your studying location can help, because when studying, your brain is not only picking up the material, but also all of the environmental cues. So changing environment can link more things to the information that you're trying to learn. So now here's how I would try to remember this text about the American Revolution. So first I would try to find what, why, when, who, and how questions. For example, when did the American Revolution take place? Why did the revolution start? Who provided assistance to the American cause? What was signed at the end of the revolution? And then I would try to find deeper questions with answers that are not explicitly stated in the text. For example, what impact did the American Revolution had on world history? Finally, I would make digital flashcards for each question with images and maybe sound, and while reviewing those cards, I would close my eyes and try to imagine as much details as possible. All of this obviously takes more time than just rereading the text, but if you take a couple of minutes every day to review your flashcards, the return on investment will be massive, because eventually you will get to a point where you will no longer forget the information. Lastly, a quick point on mnemonic images. Mnemonic images are mental pictures that represent a fact that you want to remember. It is a great tool for very specific use cases like memorizing 100,000 digits of pi. But for normal learning, I don't think they're very useful. You can try to incorporate them into your learning, but I think you'll waste more time than you'll save. Number 3, deliberate practice. Most people often confuse performance with practice, and I think it is holding them back. For example, playing a ranked match in your favorite video game is performance. Training an individual skill in a custom match is practice. Singing at a show, performance. Working on a harder singing technique, practice. To get better at any skill, I think you should adopt the same standards as a professional musician. They spend 95% of their time practicing and only 5% of their time performing. They do that for a very simple reason, because performing does not improve performance. only deliberate practice does. So what is deliberate practice? The author of the book Peak describes it as a hard and focused practice with corrective feedback in a competitive and well-developed field that is generally not enjoyable. The last part of the definition is important. Generally not enjoyable. It needs to be that way because for a practice to be effective, you need to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. You need to be focused and you need to make mistakes. A good rule of thumb is that if your practice is too easy or too much fun, you're probably not improving. I think the reason people confuse practice with performance is because at the beginning, performing is a form of pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. But eventually, you reach a point where it gets comfortable, and that's when you stop improving. A good example of people performing too much and not practicing enough is with chess. Most people just play games after games after games and wonder why they're not improving. But playing chess games is mostly just performance. To get better, you need to actually review your games and the games of Grandmaster. Also, fun fact, and this blew my mind when I read it, doctors with 20 years of experience are not necessarily better than doctors with only 5 years of experience. That is because after medical school, the daily activities of a practicing doctor are not enough to push them outside of their comfort zone, which leads to their skill level staying the same. Okay, so as I said earlier, deliberate practice needs to be hard and focused practice with corrective feedback within a competitive and well-developed field. That is the ideal, and a lot of times you won't be able to meet all of those standards. So the second best option is to get as close to it as possible. So here's how to do that in 3 steps. Step 1 is to create drills that isolate each skill that you want to improve. Isolating each skill is very important because often the performing environment doesn't allow us to do a lot of repetitions. Surfing is the best example of that. At the beach, you might be able to surf at best 10 to 20 waves in a day. But now we have simulators that give us the ability to surf the equivalent of 100 to 200 waves in a day. Step 2 is to try to make the drills more difficult than you're comfortable with. For example, if you're a violinist, it could be playing a scale 10 to 15% faster than you're used to. Or if you're learning mathematics, it could be solving problems that are more and more complex. Step 3 is to set your ego aside and aggressively seek feedback. The best feedbacks are the ones that are corrective, which means that they tell you where you went wrong. They are instant and accurate. But sometimes you may not be able to get this kind of feedback, so the closer you can get to this, the better. Finally, you should be mixing which skills you're practicing during the day. This is called interleaving, and it helps your brain not only know how to do something, but when to do it. It also helps you build good intuition and gives you the ability to instantly know what to do and how to do it. Number 4, if you're stuck, stop thinking. There are 2 modes of thinking. There's the focus mode and there's the diffuse mode. The focus mode is when you're paying attention to something. For example, when you're trying to solve a math problem. In focus mode, your brain turns off everything that it thinks is unnecessary and spends most of its resources on the parts that you need to solve the problem. However, this can create something called Einstein, which is when your brain is set on a certain method and cannot think or use any other method. That is why sometimes you might get stuck and not be able to find a solution to your problem. That's when the diffuse mode gets in handy. The diffuse mode is when you let your brain wander around and be creative. A good way to get out of Einstein and into the diffuse mode is to take a break and not think about the problem. That way it will allow your brain to make more creative connections and solve the problem in the background. The best moment to get into diffuse mode is when you're really stuck on a problem. That way you're taking the most advantage of your brain working at the problem in the background. And if you can, set a 5 to 10 minute struggle timer before you take a break. That way you can be sure that you're truly stuck. Another great way to get unstuck and understand a concept better is to get a good night of sleep. Sleep is one of the most important part of learning because your brain is doing a lot of work in the background while you're snoozing away. So if you want to prioritize your learning, you should avoid doing all-nighters, you should avoid alcohol, you should also avoid cannabis and get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Number 5, the myth of innate talent. Lastly, let's talk about innate talent, because this is the main thing that discourages people from learning new things. The truth is, the innate limit to your abilities does not exist. At least if it does, you will likely never come close to reaching it in your lifetime. The reason people get so stuck on this idea is because either they've been told they're not good at something, or they reached a plateau, looked around and saw other progress faster and thought to themselves, well, they're just probably naturally better than me. But that is simply not true. The reason you plateau or don't progress fast enough in your understanding of a subject or a skill is not because you've reached your innate limit. It is because you're not using effective learning or training methods. As for the role that IQ plays, it can be an advantage to have a higher IQ. However, it is not the end-all be-all. In the book Peak, the author explains that for a competitive sport like chess, IQ does play a role in the beginning when learning the fundamentals and the rules, but after a while it stops making a difference. Also, the people with a lower IQ usually have built better habits and discipline out of necessity, which gives them an advantage over the people with higher IQs in the long run. So if there's something that you really want to learn but you don't think you have the natural talent for it, just try it. And when you get stuck, don't try to make up an excuse, just try to find a better way to learn. Thank you for watching. If you like videos about people learning things, consider subscribing, because I'm going to be using everything that I've learned here to learn skills as fast as possible. And also, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm Michael. Bye-bye.